2022 has definitely been an interesting year, well, at least as far as entertainment goes. If it's not Warner Bros. Discovery canceling every other scheduled release due to every other reason under the sun, you have Netflix becoming weaker and weaker by the second, which hasn't really been seen in over a decade. Superhero content is all over the place, with the best movies shockingly not coming from Marvel, but DC with the Batman. And the best show not coming from Marvel or DC, but rather seen in Dynamite Entertainment and Amazon Prime Video with The Boys. Movies are quite literally being trolled to making close to $1 billion, and A-list celebrities more than ever are teaming up to create these multi-million-dollar projects. And amongst all of the chaos, we have somehow been transported back to the year of 1986 as Top Gun is back on top and better than ever. Coming in at around $1.4 billion made at the time of this recording, this film is currently #1 in the worldwide box office of 2022 and #12 in the all-time box office worldwide. This sequel that is roughly 35 years in the making has risen to the top amongst a conglomerate of other very competitive films this year, which is honestly impressive considering that we are still in the backorder years of films, as some of those 2019 and 2020 releases that were postponed are being scheduled to be released around this time, meaning studios are a bit more eager to get those projects out there and make up for lost time and revenue. So with the millions of dollars being thrown around every other day to develop the next blockbuster, what separates this film from the next? Why is a film that's not the most complex, not the most groundbreaking, not the most comedic, not even having the biggest budget, dominating such an acclaimed field that is film? Well, it's simple. They're just exploiting Hollywood in a good way. Film is all about entertainment, and people are willing to check out what they know will be entertaining to them. This is why you see the crushing hold that sequels have over the industry nowadays. In fact, the top 10 highest grossing movies worldwide for 2022 have almost all been sequels of some sort. And when you look even further, you see that the two that aren't sequels, in The Batman and Uncharted, are two movies based on popular pre-existing source material, meaning that they can be classified as a continuation in themselves. Put simply, it's been a year of expanding upon older tales, with sequels and franchises prioritizing themselves in cinema over original stories. And I have to admit, as a viewer, it is just fun to see how a beloved character's story continues past their original release, allowing for us to revisit a beloved world again with familiar characters and unique worldviews. There's nothing inherently wrong with a sequel, but it just seems that it's become such a priority in cinema to the point that it's sort of forcing certain creators to just be boring. It has become increasingly more tempting for sequels to just rehash the same elements of the original, to be as close to it as possible in some attempt to mimic any sort of the original success. Just like at Taika Waititi's efforts with Thor Ragnarok and its direct sequel in Thor Love and Thunder, you pretty much just see an hyperinflation of what made Ragnarok successful being implemented in Love and Thunder, and it results in a film that falls flat on its face. I mean, it still made its money at the end of the day, as come on, it's Marvel, but it didn't reach nearly the high expectations given for this reviving series. For as popular as the concept of sequels are, there are so many technical reasons why they shouldn't be encouraged that it's insane. Like, creators will always have to fit within the borders of a predetermined world and make sure everything lines up with the previous release, and have that line up with the possible next release, and the next, and the next. And if it doesn't, well, that's just bad storytelling. People are incentivized to provide copy and paste stories filled with fan service to mask up providing an actually competent story. And no matter how creative you can be, it's almost impossible to ever spread the same impact of the film before, or at least generate the same hype, because it isn't a new story at the end of the day. It's a sequel. Really, the only reason why a world is revisited after its supposed conclusion is due to profit reasons, plain and simple. Because films are all about entertainment, and people are more willing to check out what they know will be entertaining to them. Top Gun Maverick took this concept of a sequel, but didn't view it as a crutch, which allowed for the inherent traction they gained from playing into the system to actually pay off to its fullest extent. Because rich movie poor movie, original, or sequel, you can't really replicate the beauty of having a good plot. The film is not only an extremely visually pleasing movie, but it's also centered around these incredible themes that expertly build off the plot of the previous installment, while also proving to be a remarkable solo watch as well. They aren't trying to tackle an otherworldly concept to an original release with a conclusive ending just for the sake of opening it back up. It's exploring a fatal tragedy of the previous film and how that physically and mentally affects those moving forward. A pretty seamless and natural progression of story, allowing writers to spend their efforts into adding to an already great compelling baseline instead of trying to develop it from scratch. It's kind of interesting that this movie didn't try to throw itself into referencing its previous installment over and over again, considering that it has one extremely large thing going for it: nostalgia. Nostalgia is the reason why people may look at an objectively bad old television show with rose-colored glasses, or they may say certain professional athletes are all-time greats, even if they are a product of their time and don't have the greatest amount of skill compared to current players. It is a very powerful tool that studios can use to inflate audiences' care for certain projects, as slapping on any association to a film that will invoke memories of past times will definitely gather a crowd of those trying to reminisce. And based on the pure amount of hardcore fans that Top Gun has, along with it being a film that many people have direct memories of, as it didn't come out an extremely long time ago, they probably had tickets pre-ordered before the movie even started shooting. Nostalgia-based media are inherently sequels in themselves, so they have the same setbacks and advantages, except it's about 10 times more enticing to people who grew up with it, considering that it's not only representing a good previous installment, but it's representing an entire time period in a lot of cases. Studios, however, can get a bit too trigger happy with the cameos, callbacks, and references in an effort to appease that core die-hard sentimental fan base, but then that quickly turns into nostalgia bait, and now you have a release that has no substance past riding on the backs of the previous original release. It's a problem that another 2022 nostalgia flick in Jurassic World Dominion suffered a bit from, as they masked up poorly thought out concepts with constant monotonous action and very on-the-nose reference to the trilogy of the past, causing it to not be perceived very well in the eyes of many viewers, especially the ones who are not blinded by the lust of the past. This just makes the difficult balancing act that Top Gun Maverick pulled off even more impressive, because it's able to take and embrace the concepts of a nostalgic film, but build upon it in such a meaningful way in which many others will find themselves lost. It doesn't try to rebrand something of old, but rather expands, which is what a sequel is fundamentally supposed to do. It introduces an array of new Top Gun graduates, all with interesting arcs and personalities, instead of heavily relying on the cast of old. Rooster, Hangman, Phoenix, all excellent new faces that can carry this franchise to a newer generation of interest. And it's not like they are abandoning the past completely, as of course it's nice to see those references. Of course it's nice to see those older actors come on screen. Of course it's nice to see those parallels between the old and the new. But like I said, it's all a balancing act. This movie treats those nostalgic moments as a topping on an already great movie pie, instead of using it as a part of its main ingredients, and they ended up maximizing their efforts because of it. Now, after such a successful response this movie received, the biggest question on everyone's minds is, what's next? They could go for a similar route as before and laying low on this franchise for another couple of decades, but based on the big numbers it's putting up, along with us being in an era of revitalizing stories of the past, it's highly unlikely that another installment won't pop up in the next 10 years or so. It's been reported that this is ultimately the decision of Tom Cruise, and he was the one who officially put the franchise in hiatus in the first place around its initial success. But let's not forget about the other Tom Cruise project that he has a lot of influence in, and how many installments that ended up receiving. Could be especially enticing to run up another sequel, considering that this is officially his highest grossing movie of all time. I honestly really appreciate these big draws that are able to encourage those to get back out there and support these theatrical releases, but personally, I think it's best to just end this illustrious franchise here, at least for now. They have gone 2 for 2, which is more than what a lot of legacy series can say, and they don't really have that major plot development this time that can roll over into another film without making something completely new up. Maverick, for the most part, just doesn't have that major tragedy such as the predecessor to build off of, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Way too often do we see these beloved franchises be muddled to the ground due to them stretching itself more and more in order to fit another release in, to the point that it doesn't even emanate the same spirit of the original release. Just look at the evolution of the Fast and Furious franchise. Top Gun Maverick is a sequel made with a valid purpose. It was able to exploit the concepts that dominate current cinema, such as sequels, nostalgia flicks, heck, even having major draws within its cast, but without falling falling to the typical traps that encompass those exploitations, primarily the lack of attention care for the actual plot, as one is too hard-pressed to be as close to being another movie as possible. Maverick successfully balanced the beauty of the old with the rejuvenating ideas of new to officially be the Top Gun of this year. If you guys made it this far, I would ask if you guys please like and subscribe to the channel. It only takes 2 seconds, but it would mean the world to me. Peace.